The smoke of war still hung in the air. Blackened soil stretched far across the ruined field, and broken weapons lay scattered like the bones of fallen beasts. The clash between human forces and the alien empire had ended hours ago, but the ground still trembled with echoes of destruction. Fires burned quietly in the distance, and the wind carried the bitter smell of ash and metal. Amid the silence, a man named Arun struggled to breathe. His armor was cracked, his chest carried a deep wound, and his arms were heavy like stone. He had fought with all his strength until the human line collapsed under the weight of alien fire. He had seen friends fall beside him, their cries fading into the roar of battle. He alone had survived, though survival felt more like punishment than victory. Arun pushed himself up from the ground and leaned against a broken piece of stone wall. His blood stained the dirt, yet he refused to let go of life. His training told him to hide, to remain silent, for alien scouts would soon move across the field. Every breath sent a sharp pain through his side, but his spirit refused to break. The night sky above was strange and wide, filled with the glowing stars of a foreign world. This was not Earth. Humanity had carried war far from its home, meeting enemies older and stronger than themselves. Arun stared at those stars and thought of the reason he was here. Not for glory, not for conquest, but because humans could not accept chains. To live free meant to risk everything. The sound of heavy steps grew closer. His heart tightened. Shapes moved through the smoke. Tall alien warriors, armored in shining plates, swept the field with their strange weapons. Their eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, searching for survivors. Arun held his breath and pressed himself low, though he knew he could not escape. His wound was too deep, his body too weak. A sharp voice rang out in the alien tongue, and two warriors rushed to his side. They lifted him roughly, and his body cried in pain. His vision blurred as he was dragged across the ground toward a group of figures waiting near a massive banner. At the center stood one who was taller than the rest, dressed in robes that shimmered with silver light. Her crown was forged of black crystal, and her presence commanded silence. She was the queen of this alien host. Arun's mind struggled between anger and despair. He expected no mercy from her. To the aliens, humans were rebels who defied the rightful rule of the stars. The queen was said to be ruthless, a ruler who crushed all who dared stand against her empire. The warriors dropped Arun to the ground before her. His knees struck the dirt, and his wound tore open again. He bit down hard, refusing to show weakness before his enemies. The queen studied him with eyes like polished stone, cold and unreadable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, one of the alien captains stepped forward and bowed. He raised his weapon slightly and asked the queen for her command. Arun braced himself, certain that the order would be his death. He lifted his head and looked at her directly, refusing to bow even in defeat. Then something strange happened. The queen's gaze fell upon the wound in his side. Her expression, once firm and commanding, faltered. Her lips parted slightly, and for the first time, her court saw hesitation on her face. The alien warriors shifted in confusion, waiting for her to speak, but she said nothing. The queen stepped closer. Her long hand reached out but did not touch. She leaned over, her sharp eyes locked on the bleeding cut across Arun's body. Her voice, when it came, was low and filled with disbelief. "This wound," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "It should have ended him." The warriors looked at one another, not understanding. To them, a human soldier was nothing more than a fragile creature, quick to fall and easy to break. Yet here stood one who clung to life even after such injury. Arun, though weak, caught her words. He did not understand why she was shocked, but he felt a strange satisfaction in knowing that his survival disturbed her. Pain surged through him, but his spirit grew stronger. The queen's silence stretched long. The air around her court grew tense. At last, she raised her hand and signaled for her warriors to step back. Her eyes remained fixed on Arun, but her voice carried across the ruined field. "Take him to the inner hall," she commanded. "He does not die here." The alien captain bowed again and obeyed, though confusion lingered in his stance. Two warriors lifted Arun once more, carrying him toward the queen's fortress that loomed beyond the battlefield. Arun drifted in and out of darkness, but he heard enough to know that something unusual had happened. The queen had spared him, though he did not know why. As they entered the towering gates of the alien stronghold, Arun's mind swam with questions. Why had she stopped? What did she see in his wound? Was it fear, or recognition of something greater? He could not find the answers yet. Pain pulled him into unconsciousness, and the last thing he saw was the tall figure of the queen watching him with eyes that no longer looked only cruel, but uncertain. The battlefield lay silent behind them, but a new story was beginning within the walls of the enemy's throne. The fortress of the alien empire rose high above the ruined battlefield. Its black walls shone like glass under the twin moons of the world, and its towers reached for the sky like sharp spears. Inside its gates, strange banners swayed, showing the crest of the alien queen's house. Warriors marched in silence, their steps like drums that echoed through the wide halls. Through those halls, Arun was carried by two guards. His body hung heavy between them, and his wound burned with every step. His eyes opened for moments, catching glimpses of the strange place. The walls were carved with symbols he did not understand. Blue light floated in the air like mist, giving the fortress a cold and unearthly glow. At the center of this fortress was the throne chamber. Its floor was smooth stone, its ceiling high enough to swallow voices. The throne itself was shaped from dark crystal, sharp and shining, with veins of silver running across it like lightning frozen in rock. Upon that throne sat the queen, her presence filling the hall before a word was spoken. The guards set Arun down on his knees. His body shook, but he forced himself to remain upright. He would not show weakness before her again. The court stood around him, rows of alien lords and commanders, all watching in silence. They expected a swift command, perhaps his death. Yet they waited, for the queen had not spoken. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes once again fixed on his wound. It had not closed, and fresh blood stained his torn armor. Her gaze held no pity, but something else, something uncertain. The hall remained quiet until the alien captain, the same who had spoken earlier, broke the silence. "My queen," he said, bowing his head. "This human is nothing but a soldier. Shall I end him here?" The queen raised her hand, stopping him. Her voice was steady, but her words carried weight. "No," she said. "Leave us." The hall filled with whispers. The lords looked at one another, confused, yet none dared to argue. Slowly, one by one, they bowed and stepped out. Even the captain hesitated before following the order. Soon only the queen, Arun, and a pair of silent guards remained. She lifted her hand again, and even the guards left the chamber, leaving Arun alone with her. For a long moment, the queen said nothing. She rose from her throne and walked toward him. Her steps were slow and measured, her long cloak dragging softly across the floor. She stopped just before him, close enough that Arun could see the faint marks of age and power on her face. "You should not be alive," she said at last. Her voice was calm, yet filled with disbelief. Arun clenched his teeth, his breath heavy. Humans do not fall so easily, he replied. His words were weak, but his eyes carried strength. The queen tilted her head slightly, studying him. Your body is broken, yet your spirit remains. Do you know why your wound troubles me, human? Arun did not answer. He did not trust her words, nor her sudden interest. To him, she was still the ruler of an empire that sought to destroy his kind. The queen knelt down, her eyes fixed on the wound as though it held a secret. Our kind, she began slowly, would never survive such a cut. Not even with the finest healers. Yet you endure. The blood that leaves you should have ended your life already. Her hand hovered above the injury, though she did not touch. She whispered almost to herself, the mark is the same as the old writings describe. A wound that cannot claim the one who carries the will of survival. Arun frowned, not fully understanding her words. Old writings. What are you talking about? She looked into his eyes then, and for the first time, her gaze was not cruel but questioning. Long before my throne, before my people built this empire, there were stories. They spoke of a being from the stars who would bear the wound of endurance. A wound that no blade could truly conquer. It was said that this being would rise not from our kind, but from another. Many of us believed it was only a tale. Arun felt his breath grow heavier. He wanted to dismiss her words as nonsense, yet the way she spoke told him she believed it herself. And now you think I am that being? He asked. The queen rose again, her figure towering above him. I do not know. But your survival says more than I can ignore. The chamber fell into silence. The queen's eyes narrowed, and her voice grew sharper. Tell me, human. Why do your kind fight? Why do you stand against empires far greater than you? Do you not see it is hopeless? Arun forced himself to raise his head. His body trembled, but his voice grew firm. Because freedom is worth more than life. If we must fight until we fall, we fight. No ruler, no empire, has the right to chain us. The queen studied him long, her face unreadable. Then she turned and walked back to her throne. She sat down, her cloak spreading across the crystal seat. For a while she said nothing, and Arun wondered if she would call her guards again. Finally she spoke, her voice soft but clear. Your words echo the writings as well. Courage in weakness. Will in despair. Perhaps there is more truth in those stories than I once believed. She raised her hand and struck the arm of her throne lightly. The doors opened, and her guards returned. They looked at her, waiting for command. Do not kill this human, she ordered. He remains under my watch. Prepare a chamber for him. He will be kept alive. The guards bowed and stepped forward to lift Arun once again. He struggled weakly, not from fear but from pride. Yet he could not resist their strength. As they carried him out, he looked back at the queen one last time. She was still watching him, her face calm but her eyes unsettled. Arun realized she was no longer looking at him as just an enemy soldier. She was looking at him as something else, something that shook even her. And deep inside, though he would not admit it, Arun felt the same. The chamber where Arun was placed was not a prison cell, yet it was no comfort either. The walls were smooth stone, glowing faintly with blue lines that pulsed like veins of light. The bed was little more than a slab covered with thin fabric, and beside it stood a small bowl of water and a lamp that burned without fire. Two alien guards stood outside the door, their tall shadows stretching across the floor. They did not speak, but their presence was heavy, reminding Arun that escape was impossible. His body was too weak, and even if he ran, the fortress was a maze filled with soldiers. Arun lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His wound still burned, though it was no longer bleeding as much. He had torn cloth from his uniform to bind it, but the cloth was already stained dark. Every breath sent a wave of pain through his chest, yet he held onto it. Pain meant life. Silence meant he was still here. Time passed slowly. He did not know if hours or days slipped by. The blue veins of light on the walls changed their glow from bright to dim, perhaps marking night and day. Arun lost count, his mind drifting between wakefulness and sleep. In his dreams, he saw the battlefield again. He heard the cries of his comrades, felt the fire of alien weapons, and woke with his heart pounding. One night, as the chamber lay quiet, the door opened without warning. The guards did not enter. Instead, the queen herself stepped inside. She wore no crown this time, only a long cloak that moved like water around her. Her eyes, sharp as ever, glowed faintly in the dim light. Arun pushed himself up, though his body protested. He would not be seen lying down before her. "You should be resting," the queen said calmly. "I will not bow in weakness," Arun replied, his voice rough but steady. A faint smile touched her lips, though it disappeared quickly. She stepped closer, her gaze once again drawn to his wound. "It still bleeds," she said. Arun looked down. "It has not killed me yet." The queen's eyes narrowed. "No. And that is why I am here." She sat on a low stone seat across from him, her cloak spreading around her. For a moment, she was silent, as if searching for the right words. Then she spoke, her voice low. "In my people's oldest records, before we built empires and spread across the stars, there were songs. Songs of a figure from beyond our world. They called it the Endurer. It was said that this being would survive the wound of despair, the wound no blade could heal. Its blood would carry the strength to face even death itself." Arun listened, frowning. "And you think I am this Endurer?" The queen's eyes fixed on him. "You live where none of my kind would. You heal where others would fade. Tell me, human, is your kind truly so different, or is it you alone?" Arun thought of his people, scattered across worlds, fighting against powers far greater than them. He thought of the way humans had always risen again, no matter how often they were broken. He spoke with quiet strength. "It is not only me. It is all of us. We do not stop. Even when the wound is too deep, we crawl until we stand again." The queen's face remained calm, yet her eyes softened. "Your words match the prophecy too well." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "My council believes you are nothing but a soldier who should be removed. But I saw the truth when I looked at your wound. I saw the sign that has lived in our stories for centuries." Arun met her gaze firmly. "Then perhaps your stories were not just stories." Silence filled the chamber. The queen studied him, as if weighing his spirit more than his words. Her hand lifted slightly, and for the first time, she touched his arm. Her touch was cool, her fingers long and steady. "You do not fear me," she said. Arun did not look away. "Fear does not help me. You are my enemy, but you are still flesh and blood, same as me." The queen drew back her hand slowly. "Strange. No other prisoner has ever spoken to me like this. They either beg or curse. But you stand. I have nothing left to lose, Arun said simply. That makes me free. For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then she rose to her full height, her cloak falling around her like night itself. You may not understand this, human, but your survival has already shaken my throne. My people expect me to destroy you. Yet here I am, speaking with you in secret. If they learn of this, it may cost me everything. Arun tilted his head, curious. Then why risk it? The queen's eyes flashed. Because I must know if the stories are true. If you are what they speak of, then my empire stands at the edge of change. She turned and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she paused and looked back at him. Her voice was steady, but softer than before. Rest, human. For now, you live because I choose it. But soon, I will need to know more. Do not fail to endure. The door closed behind her, leaving Arun alone again. Yet the air in the chamber felt different now. She had spoken of prophecy, of legends, of something greater than himself. He had come here as a soldier, broken and near death. But now he was being measured against myths. Arun lay back on the bed, his mind heavy with thought. He did not know if he was the figure she spoke of. He was only a man who refused to fall. But if his endurance could shake the heart of an alien queen, perhaps it could do more. As the blue light on the walls dimmed into night, Arun closed his eyes. Pain remained, but so did a strange fire in his chest. He had survived for his own will. Now, perhaps, he survived for something greater. The days in the alien fortress passed with heavy silence. Arun remained in his chamber, guarded always by two tall warriors who never spoke to him. Food was brought at set times, placed on a tray of metal, and left without a word. The food itself was strange, glowing fruits and soft bread-like pieces, but it kept his strength from fading completely. His wounds still burned, but the bleeding had slowed. His body, though broken, held on. Yet Arun noticed something strange. No healer ever came to see him. The wound was not treated with medicines or alien devices. He was left to heal on his own. At first he thought it was neglect, a slow punishment to let him suffer until death. But one night, when the queen visited again, he understood the truth. She entered with her usual calm, her cloak flowing behind her. The guards stepped aside, and she stood before Arun's bed. Her sharp eyes studied him in silence before she spoke. "You have survived longer than any of my council expected," she said. "They believe you are too stubborn to die. But I wished to see if it was more than stubbornness. That is why I ordered no healer to touch you." Arun narrowed his eyes. "You let me suffer to prove your story?" The queen's gaze did not waver. "Suffering reveals truth. Any warrior can endure a day of pain. But days stretched into weeks show what is hidden beneath flesh. You have not only survived. You have grown stronger." Arun pushed himself to sit, though his chest ached. "You test me as if I am some creature in a cage." "You are more than that," she said softly. "You are a question I cannot yet answer. If you are what the stories spoke of, then my empire may never be the same." The chamber grew quiet again. Arun held her gaze, refusing to break. He could see in her eyes a strange struggle, as though she fought not with him but with herself. On the following days, her tests grew sharper. His food was lessened, leaving him weaker. The guards gave him no comfort, no words, only silence. Still, Arun endured. He moved his body slowly each day, forcing his muscles to remember strength. He pressed his hand against his wound, feeling it close little by little. Every moment of endurance was proof to himself, and perhaps to her, that humans were not so easy to break. Sometimes, she came to watch. She would stand by the door in silence, her cloak drawn around her, her eyes fixed on him. She spoke little, yet her presence was heavy. Arun wondered what she thought as she studied him, if she saw only a soldier or something more. One evening, she broke the silence. "Tell me, human, what gives you strength? Is it pride, or fear of death?" Arun lifted his head, his breath steady though his body trembled. "Neither. It is the will to live free. My people would rather die on their feet than kneel forever. That is why we fight." The queen's eyes glimmered. "Even when you know the enemy is greater?" "Yes," Arun said. "Because hope does not live in numbers or weapons. It lives in the heart. As long as we breathe, we fight." For the first time, the queen's lips curved slightly, almost like a shadow of a smile. Strange words. Yet they sound close to the old writings. But not all in her court agreed with her choice. One morning, as Arun sat on his bed binding his wound again, shouts echoed from beyond the door. The guards outside stiffened, then opened the chamber for the queen. She entered swiftly, her cloak moving like fire behind her. This time, she was not alone. A group of alien generals followed, their armor shining, their eyes filled with suspicion. One of them pointed at Arun. "My queen, this human should be ended. His presence here dishonors our dead. We have no need for his weakness." The queen raised her hand, silencing him. "He is not weak. Look at him. Weeks have passed, and he still stands. Would one of us survive the same?" The generals muttered among themselves, anger sharp in their voices. Another stepped forward. "He is dangerous. Not because of strength, but because he poisons your thoughts. Already your time is wasted on him while our people demand blood." The queen's eyes flashed. She rose taller, her voice cutting through the chamber. "Enough. I am your queen. You will obey. This human lives under my command." The generals fell silent, though anger still burned in their eyes. They bowed stiffly and left, their heavy steps echoing through the hall. Arun watched in silence. When the chamber was quiet again, he spoke. "Your own people doubt you." The queen turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "They doubt because they fear. They fear change. But I will not ignore what I have seen." She stepped closer, her voice softer now. "Do you know what you have done, human? Simply by surviving, you have shaken the pillars of my throne." Arun held her gaze. "Then maybe your throne was not so strong to begin with." For a moment, her eyes narrowed, but instead of anger, a quiet laugh escaped her. It was brief, almost bitter. "Perhaps you are right." The chamber fell into silence once more. Yet something had shifted. The queen no longer looked at Arun as just a prisoner or a question. She looked at him as a mirror reflecting truths she had long ignored. That night, when she left, Arun lay back on his bed. His body still hurt, but his heart felt stronger. He was no longer just surviving for himself. He was surviving to show her, and perhaps all her people, what it meant to be human. And as the fortress walls echoed with distant drums of war, Arun knew this was only the beginning of a greater test. Night in the alien fortress was not like night on Earth. The walls of the halls glowed with dim blue veins of light, and the air was filled with a faint hum, as though the stones themselves were alive. Outside the high windows, twin moons drifted across the sky, one pale and one blood red. The world slept, but inside Arun's chamber silence was restless. He sat on his bed, his back against the wall. His wound had closed a little more each day, though pain still clung to him. His arms were leaner now, his strength slowly returning. He breathed steady, refusing to let weakness rule him. When the door opened quietly, he knew who it was before he looked. The queen entered, dressed in a simple dark cloak without crown or jewels. Her steps were light, her presence commanding even without guards. She came alone this time, moving like a shadow across the chamber until she stood near him. "You do not sleep," she said. "I sleep when I must," Arun answered. His voice was calm, though curiosity stirred in him. "Why do you come at this hour, without your court?" The queen sat on the low stone seat, the same place she had chosen before. "Because they would not understand. They believe you are a threat or a tool. But I see something else. And I wish to hear from you without their eyes on us." Arun studied her in the dim light. "You want to know about my people?" "Yes," she said simply. "I know what my generals tell me. They say humans are reckless, wild, unable to match the strength of older races. Yet you fight without end. I have seen you bleed and still speak with defiance. Tell me, what drives your kind?" Arun was silent for a moment, searching for the right words. Then he spoke slowly, clearly. "We are not the strongest, nor the fastest. We do not live as long as your kind. But we carry something that does not break. When we fall, we rise again. When hope is gone, we still move forward. It is not power of body, but power of will." The queen listened, her sharp eyes reflecting the glow of the walls. "Will. Your word is simple, yet it carries weight. Among my people, we value order, tradition, strength. Will alone is seen as foolish if it defies reason. Yet you say it is your greatest weapon." Arun nodded. "Because when all else fails, it is the last thing left." Silence lingered between them. Then the queen leaned back slightly, her cloak folding around her. "Long ago, when I was not yet queen, I heard the old songs of the Endurer. I thought they were nothing but tales told to children. A figure who would rise when the world grew cold, who would survive where none else could. I laughed at them. But now I see you, human, and I wonder if my laughter was misplaced." Arun held her gaze. "I am no hero of legend. I am only a soldier who refuses to give up." Her lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, but something close. Sometimes legends are born from such soldiers. The chamber grew quiet again. Outside, the twin moons crossed paths in the sky, casting red and silver light through the narrow window. In that strange glow, the queen seemed less like a ruler of an empire and more like a woman burdened with questions. She spoke again, softer this time. "Tell me, Arun, what do you miss of your home? You have fought so long on foreign soil. What waits for you on your world?" Arun closed his eyes for a moment, remembering. "The air of earth. It is not like this place. It smells of rain and grass, not stone and fire. I miss the rivers, the open fields. I miss the laughter of my people, even in hard times. We are never truly quiet, never without song or story. That is home." The queen listened in silence. For a moment, her face softened, as though the image of his words reached her mind. "My world once had such places," she whispered. "Before the empire spread, before the cities swallowed the land. Perhaps I miss them too, though I hardly knew them. Their eyes met again, and in that moment something shifted. Arun no longer saw only the ruler of a conquering empire. He saw a being who carried her own burdens, her own memories, her own doubts. And she, looking at him, no longer saw only an enemy soldier, but a man with roots, with stories, with strength that came from more than war. They spoke long into the night. She asked about human customs, about why they buried their dead instead of burning them, about why they told stories even in times of despair. Arun answered as best he could, telling her of campfires where soldiers shared tales to keep fear away, of children who played games in ruined streets, laughing louder than the guns that shook the air. At times she questioned him, at times she fell into thought. When silence returned, it was not heavy but calm. At last, when the moons began to sink and the first light of dawn touched the fortress, the queen rose. Her cloak swept the floor as she turned to leave. Before stepping out, she looked back at him one more time. "You have given me much to think about," she said. "You remind me that strength is not always in the blade or the throne. Perhaps it lies also in the heart." Arun did not bow, but he inclined his head slightly. "And perhaps your people must learn that lesson too." The queen paused, her eyes narrowing slightly, though not in anger. "Perhaps," she said again. Then she left, the door closing softly behind her. Arun lay back on the bed, his body weary but his spirit strangely lighter. For the first time since the battle, he felt less like a prisoner and more like a voice that mattered. The queen's visits were not only tests now. They were conversations, and in them, he saw a crack in the wall of her empire. If he could speak to her heart, perhaps he could speak to others. And if his survival meant something greater, then he would endure not only for himself but for what might come after. The fortress grew quiet again, but in the silence of that chamber, hope began to grow. The fortress was never quiet for long. Beyond Arun's chamber, the halls shook with the sound of marching boots and the deep calls of alien horns. The empire prepared for another campaign, another strike against human resistance. Yet inside the throne chamber, another kind of battle was taking shape, one fought with words and doubts rather than blades. The queen sat upon her dark crystal throne, her crown casting thin shadows across her sharp face. Around her stood her generals, tall and proud in their silver armor. Their voices were heavy with anger, their words sharp with demand. "My queen," one spoke, his voice echoing. "We cannot allow this human to live. His very presence insults our warriors who fell in battle. To let him breathe is weakness." Another stepped forward, bowing only slightly. "Your rule has always been strong." But now whispers move through the soldiers. "They say you protect the enemy. If you do not act, those whispers may turn to rebellion." The queen's eyes flashed like blades of light. "Do you question me?" The generals fell to silence, though the air trembled with their unease. The queen's voice cut through the hall, steady and cold. "I am your ruler. My will is law. Yet I will not command blindly. This human is not like the others. He endures what no one of our kind could endure. He bears the wound that should have ended him. Tell me, is that weakness?" None dared to answer. They shifted uneasily, their gazes lowered. At last, one general spoke again. "It may be strange, yes. But strange does not mean sacred. A human is still only a human. His survival does not change what he is." The queen rose from her throne, her cloak flowing like storm clouds behind her. She stepped down toward them, her voice rising. "You are blind. You see only flesh and blood. I see the truth written in him." Our old stories spoke of the endurer, the one who would rise from beyond our world. I thought them foolish once, yet now I see them living before me. Do you not see it too? Her generals bowed their heads lower, unwilling to defy her openly. But she saw the doubt in their eyes, the resistance hidden beneath obedience. That night, when the chamber was dark and silent, the queen returned again to Arun. She found him sitting cross-legged on the bed, his wound bound with rough cloth, his face calm though tired. "You heard the voices," she said. "Yes," Arun answered. "Even from here I could hear them. They want my death." The queen stood by the wall, her arms folded. "They fear what you represent. To them, you are a danger greater than any blade. Not because of what you have done, but because of what you might become." Arun tilted his head. "And to you?" The queen's eyes softened slightly. "To me, you are the question I cannot ignore. My throne rests upon tradition and power. Yet your survival shows a truth I cannot deny. If I kill you, I silence the question. But if I let you live, my rule may fracture." Arun's voice was steady. "Then you must choose between empire and truth." She turned toward him, her cloak brushing the floor. "Easy words for one who bears no crown. You do not know the weight of a throne." Arun met her gaze. "I know the weight of freedom. It is heavier than any throne, yet my people carry it every day. If we fall, we rise again, because freedom is worth more than rule." The queen was silent, his words echoing in the chamber. For a moment she looked not like a ruler, but like someone caught between two roads. Finally, she spoke. "My generals press me to act. They believe I grow weak. If they rise against me, my empire will drown in blood. And all because of you." Arun's eyes narrowed. "Not because of me. Because of their fear. Your choice is not about me. It is about whether you rule by fear or by truth." The queen stared at him long, her sharp features lit by the faint glow of the walls. Her voice was almost a whisper. "And if truth destroys me, then at least you fall standing for something real," Arun answered. Silence stretched between them. The queen turned away, her cloak heavy on her shoulders. She walked toward the door but paused before leaving. Without turning, she spoke softly. "You speak as if you are not my prisoner, but my equal. Strange, human. Very strange." Then she left, the door closing behind her. The following days grew tense. Rumors spread through the fortress. Some soldiers whispered that the queen was protecting a chosen being, one marked by prophecy. Others whispered that she had lost her strength. The generals met in secret, their voices rising in anger behind closed doors. Arun felt the change as well. Guards watched him more closely. Food came late. The air itself seemed thicker with unease. Yet his wound healed faster now, his body finding strength where none should remain. He felt the fire of survival burn brighter, as if his spirit itself defied the empire. One evening, the queen summoned her council to the great hall. Arun was brought there as well, standing under guard. The lords and generals filled the chamber, their eyes sharp with suspicion. The queen sat upon her throne, her crown shining in the light of torches. Before all, she spoke. "You call for his death. You call for his silence. But I tell you this. He is no mere soldier. He is proof that strength does not end with the body. He is the living sign that endurance itself can defy even death. You fear him because he shows you what you are not." The hall fell to whispers, some fearful, some angry. One general shouted, Then you place your faith in an enemy. You risk our empire for him. The queen rose, her voice thunderous. I risk nothing. It is you who risk all by clinging to fear. This human stands as a mirror. Look into it, and you may see your own weakness. The generals bowed stiffly, unwilling to fight her openly, yet the storm in their eyes remained. Arun stood silent through it all, but inside, his spirit burned. The queen had spoken for him, not as a prisoner, but as something greater. For the first time, he saw not only her doubt, but her courage to stand against her own people. The choice was not yet finished, but the path had begun. The fortress trembled with the weight of its own silence. After the queen's words in the great hall, the empire stood at a turning point. Whispers spread through the ranks like fire through dry grass. Some soldiers spoke of loyalty, others of betrayal. In the eyes of the generals, there was unease mixed with fury. A single human had shaken their certainty, not with weapons, but with survival. Arun remained in his chamber, guarded more heavily than before. He felt the tension in every footstep that passed outside his door. Yet he also felt something else: hope. Not only in himself, but in the queen who had stood against her court for him. When the door opened late one night, he knew it was her before he looked up. The queen entered without her crown, her cloak flowing like shadow. Her eyes were steady, though a storm hid within them. She stood for a long moment before speaking. The empire is restless, she said. The generals press harder than ever. They demand your death. They say my rule is broken because of you. Arun studied her, his voice calm. And you? What do you say? The queen moved closer, her steps slow. I say that truth is heavier than a crown. But I fear the cost. If I protect you, I may lose my throne. If I kill you, I may lose myself. Arun held her gaze. You already know the choice. The question is whether you have the strength to make it. She looked at him sharply, yet not with anger. Instead, there was almost sorrow. Strength is not what I doubt. It is the world that will come after. An empire built on fear is easier to hold than one built on truth. Arun's voice carried steady warmth. Then let the old empire fall, and build one that endures. The queen turned away, standing at the narrow window where twin moons glowed above the dark hills. Her cloak shifted like wings around her. For a long time, she stood in silence, as though speaking to herself. At last she turned back. Tomorrow, I will face them all. The generals, the lords, the soldiers. And you will stand at my side. If my throne is to break, let it break in the light, not in shadow. Arun rose to his feet, his wounds still aching but his strength renewed. He bowed his head slightly. Then I will stand. The next day the fortress gathered in the great courtyard. Thousands filled the space: soldiers in silver armor, lords in flowing robes, servants, and even children who had slipped among the crowd. Above them all, the throne platform rose, black stone beneath the sky. The queen stepped forward, her crown upon her brow, her cloak sweeping the stone. Beside her, guarded yet unbowed, stood Arun. The crowd stirred in shock at the sight of a human standing with their ruler. The queen raised her hand, and silence fell. Her voice rang out, strong and clear. My people. You see before you the human warrior. You see the one who should have died, yet lives. You call him enemy, yet his endurance has shown me something greater than enmity. He is not weakness. He is truth. The crowd murmured. Some cried out in anger, others in awe. A general stepped forward, his voice thundering. This is madness. To honor an enemy is betrayal. End him now, and end this foolishness. The queen's eyes blazed. You speak of betrayal. Yet what betrays us more, to bow to fear or to face truth? This human endured a wound that no warrior of our kind could endure. He rose when death itself reached for him. He is proof that strength is not in the body alone. It is in the will, in the spirit that refuses to fall. The general shouted again, he is nothing but a man. We should not kneel to him. Arun stepped forward, his voice carrying across the courtyard. I ask for no kneeling. I ask for no throne. I am only a soldier. But I will not hide what I am. I survived because I would not surrender. And that is what my people are. We are not the strongest, not the longest lived. But we endure. Strike us down, and we rise again. Burn our homes, and we build anew. You call us reckless, but we call it life. That is why I live, and why my people will not break. The courtyard fell silent. His words hung heavy in the air. Even the children listened with wide eyes, as though the spirit of his voice had reached them. The queen lifted her hand once more. Hear him. This is not weakness. This is not madness. This is the will to endure. If our empire cannot see that, then it is not strong, it is hollow. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, one soldier struck his chest with his fist in salute. Another followed. Then another. Soon the sound spread, echoing like thunder, rolling across the courtyard. The generals, though silent and bitter, could not drown the roar of the crowd. The queen stood tall, her crown gleaming, her eyes fierce. Arun stood beside her, not as prisoner, but as living proof of endurance. That night, the fortress was alive with talk. Some still doubted, some still resisted, but a new seed had been planted. Stories spread of the human who survived the wound of death, who stood beside the queen without bowing, who spoke of rising again. In her private chamber, the queen removed her crown and set it upon the table. She looked at Arun, who sat quietly nearby. You have changed much, she said softly. Not only in me, but in them. I do not know where this path leads. But I know it cannot be turned back. Arun nodded. Paths worth walking are never easy. But they endure. For the first time, she allowed herself a true smile, faint yet real. Endure. Yes, perhaps that is the word that will shape us both. Outside, the fortress walls glowed in the light of the twin moons. Inside, two figures once enemies, now bound by truth, sat in silence. Not silence of fear, but silence of beginnings. And so the story of the human wound, the queen's choice, and the endurance of will passed into the whispers of both peoples. No longer just legend. No longer just prophecy. A truth living in flesh and spirit. A truth that would not fall.